one thing I always thought of with going fast alone or far together was that always meant that there was always something to add on to. And so often, comparing it to Spider-Man, Spider-Man never really changed until he was part of a team. When he was part of a team, it seemed a greater dynamic and there was less for him to worry about. John Wooden describes success as peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction and knowing you made the effort to do in order to do the best of which you're capable. But to me, success is something different, something beyond myself, something that makes it easier to be Peter Parker. Nearing winter break of my senior year, I was stressed and losing feeling in wrestling. I was always going to varsity tournaments as an extra due to an extra slot being open in my weight class. It seemed okay during the first half of the tournament, but eventually my body and mind would internalize I am just an extra to the main roster, and it would shut me down, making it harder to wrestle. So during winter break, I had to come to a decision. I had to decide to either go to a varsity or a JV tournament on the same weekend. So I began to recall previous moments. With the varsity, it felt like some of them were not there mentally or separated emotionally. But then I remembered the previous JV tournaments. As the tournaments would go on, we'd talk during them, hung out whenever we could, shared food and devices, and grew close very fast. Even when most of us lost, it still felt like we were able to leave feeling happy because we had such a fun experience within the tournament that it overwhelmed the sadness of losing. Even for some of the newer kids, they were happy about how much they would improve from a previous tournament. And I was happy about that. So eventually, I came to a decision. During varsity tournaments, I'd feel stiff, tired, and more submittable to defeat. It was due to a subconscious mindset that I didn't even realize was there. I kept continuing because I wanted to get enough points to letter, but I could never beat my teammate normally. Even more than that, I never felt very connected to the teammates there. I didn't like that. But the JV team was different. Even though I hardly knew any of them at the time, they were closer because they were more willing to learn and more willing to connect. Before the tournaments, I reached out, first during junior year, then again during senior year, by giving them a list of what they needed to bring to a tournament as a basic foundation. They were grateful and even asked a few questions on small things I may have missed, such as inhalers, mouthguard requirements, or devices to spend the downtime on. As time went on, some asked more questions, and eventually had a backpack full of what to have. Some may not have used some things, but at least it was there. And helping them out really helped me out. So eventually, I came to the decision to go to the JV tournament. I didn't have as much of a good experience with this year's varsity, and I didn't want to feel like that during tournaments anymore. It was hard because I wanted a letter, but the many negatives outweighed the few positives. Varsity was always stressful, and JV seemed somewhat the opposite. They made me feel more like family than the varsity did. After I chose that, I decided to become the captain of the JV team. Everyone deserves someone who can help, not only based on experience, but also just because they knew how it felt to be in their shoes. I always wanted to feel like a family, and I knew how it felt to be left out of the loop and have no one in your corner. But I also knew how it felt to have someone who you can count on and rely on. So I became the one to rely on. However, those near me eventually started to only see me as Spider-Man, and I didn't like that. I didn't want to be put on a high horse compared to everyone else. I wanted to be fighting with everyone right alongside them. I had the means to help out, and because I knew what it felt like to be left out of the loop in a brand new team and brand new sport, I wanted to make it less stressful for those who chose to be around me. I always tried to help out, no matter if it was a text I sent or if I encouraged someone to keep going. I did what I thought was best, and it started to affect them too. After that, everything started to work out. My attitude became better, and my stress went way down. It was like it was meant to be. Overall, I'd say that my decision to coach the JV team was a great decision. I was able to connect the new people to the ever-growing family. I had more fun during the tournaments. I learned a lot more about leadership, and my mentality greatly improved. No matter if it was in the wrestling room or the weight room, I saw an improvement, mentally and physically. It didn't matter if I was going up against a bigger person, smaller person, better person, or worse. I always gave it my all. My mentality kept making my teammates better, and I wanted that most. Even my number one quote never changed. We can either move fast alone or far together. I made sure we went far together by making sure no one got left behind, no matter how fast the others may have moved. As I first began as Spider-Man, I had done so much to help those around me that I could now only need to help as Peter Parker. I could have never expected such an outcome to be a result of a decision so small yet fortuitous, and yet I'm glad of what became of it. So, Spider-Man was always someone who I looked up to. And even though they fought alone, they were always doing such great things. But eventually, in most occurrences, either shows or movies or even games, he can't do it all alone. And so, being part of a team just made him better. And it also made those around him better. Because they got to meet him and he got to meet them. And eventually, everything began to work out as he accepted being part of the team. The varsity had made it feel like like everyone was going fast alone, as if the people there were just brought together to see who could get a higher ranking. But I didn't like that, and so eventually, after I got to know the JV team, I wanted to help them out more, and eventually, I realized that I would want to be a captain, because the varsity always had a captain, but the JV never did. It sometimes felt as if the JV was left out. And so I wanted to be able to be the one that they can count on, because I already knew how it felt to be in their shoes. And so I wanted to be, and so since the ones who brought me in had left, I had to carry that on. And it was honestly a pretty good decision. Along with that, there was something that I never had the courage to do. Because most of the time, it felt as if asking for help was something bad, something to be repelled upon. But sometimes getting more people to help is one of the best things you can do. Keep going, no matter if it's in life or just in the wrestling room. You always have to keep going. I do believe I'm done, Coach.